The Attorney General of the United States of America has turned out to be the press secretary, the shill, the communications director for the President of the United States of America. That's right, Bill Barr, William Barr, Attorney General, gave his 4-page summary, which we now find out that the Mueller Report, 400 plus pages, some heavy redactions in the Russia conspiracy side of things, shows that his 4-page summary was a load of crap. It was marketing garbage. It was legal speak designed to mislead, to misdirect, for the Attorney General of the United States of America to advocate for a client zealously. The problem is the Attorney General of the United States is not the personal attorney for the President of the United States. This report is absolutely damning in just about every way. The only way it's not absolutely damning is in that they found to the legal threshold a conspiracy with Russia to violate our laws. Now, remember, the legal threshold in a criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's like 98% certainty that it actually happened. 92% is not good enough. 98% is where it's at in a criminal case, not a civil case where it's beyond a reasonable doubt, that where the majority, 51% says this is the case. Now, that's it. Everything else, obstruction of justice, people like Donald Trump Jr., et cetera, all wanted to do the wrong thing. And that is the key takeaway from the Mueller report, is that President Trump and most of his team wanted to do the wrong thing. Take a look. I'll put the links up, in the post so you can see all of this for yourself. You don't have to trust me. Read the report for yourself. But if you look on page 149 from the head of the Russian state investment firm, Kirill Dmitriev, wrote, upon President Trump winning the election, when Hillary Clinton called President-elect Trump to concede, this is on page 149, it was written by somebody blacked out. Putin has won. It's not Trump won. They didn't say Trump won. They said Putin has won. That's about all you really need to know. By the way, every major legal professor, from including conservatives, are saying this is one of the most damning things they've ever seen. Let me quote a conservative legal professor and the comments that were given related to this, because I think it's really important to note that it's not just liberals who look at this, because the law is the law, and it's just total insanity. Ilya Somin, law professor at George Mason University, conservative, who takes a conservative view of the Constitution, a more originalist view of the Constitution, says this to Vox: the Mueller report paints an unflattering picture of President Trump, particularly on the question of obstruction of justice. Although Robert Mueller didn't reach any conclusion, he did conclude that, quote, our investigation found multiple acts by the president that were capable of exerting undue influence over law enforcement investigations, including the Russia interference and obstruction investigations. Trump mostly failed, but that was, again, because, quote, largely because the persons who surrounded the president declined to carry out orders and accede to his request. That Don McGahn is the key guy. These are people who know the law. They're like, I'm not doing something illegal. I'm not going to break the law for this president. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not following his orders. So he attempted to obstruct justice, which, by the way, he obstructed justice. This is now in the hands of Congress to prosecute, which is exactly the way Mueller laid this thing out, is to prosecute. Again, from conservative law professor Ilya Somin, you know him from the Volokh conspiracy and other places like that. He's not a liberal. He doesn't take a liberal view of the Constitution at all. The report also includes a compelling response to claims that the president could not have committed obstruction of justice if he did not commit any underlying crime related to Russia. As the report notes, obstruction of justice can be motivated by a desire to protect non-criminal personal interests, to protect against investigations where underlying criminal liability falls into a gray area, or to avoid personal embarrassment. Here's the problem. All of these motives were present in the case of Trump. He had a strong incentive to impede the investigation in order to prevent its revelations from calling into question the legitimacy of his election. So again, conservative legal scholar is like, this is really, really bad for the president. He faces, by the way, President Trump faces potential prosecution after he leaves office because some of this happened before he was president. Basically, every liberal professor that you talk to says this thing's so incredibly damning, it's unbelievable. And now it's up to Congress to prosecute. And by the way, for you Republicans, say, oh, well, there's nothing to prosecute. This is not an impeachable offense. Let me play a little quote from Senator Lindsey Graham about what he said during the Bill Clinton impeachment. Take a listen.
So the point I'm trying to make is you don't even have to be convicted of a crime to lose your job in this constitutional republic. If this body determines that your conduct as a public official is clearly out of bounds in your role, because impeachment is not about punishment. Impeachment is about cleansing the office. Impeachment is about restoring honor and integrity to the office.
So that really does mean that impeachment could move forward based on what is in this Mueller report. It is incredibly damning. Remember that Trump made it known that Paul Manafort, his former campaign chairman, could receive a pardon. According to the Mueller report, President urged Manafort and Michael Cohen not to flip and help Mueller's inquiry. I mean, this is all stuff that the Republicans like Mitch McConnell, Chuck Grassley, Lindsey Graham, as you just heard, Pat Roberts of Kansas, Mike Crapo of Idaho, Mike Enzi of Wyoming, Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma, Richard Shelby of Alabama, Roy Blunt in Missouri, Richard Burr. All these people during the Clinton era said that that's impeachable. That is impeachable. So I'm assuming that they'll support impeachment now against President Trump. Now, look, I want to be very clear. I hate this idea that we would even be talking about impeachment. I hate that President Trump just is so in it for himself and doesn't give a rat's ass about our country. And it's all about Trump. It is all about Trump. It's all about himself. He is the most narcissistic person. I mean, anybody who seeks public office has to have some level of narcissism just to even do it. You have to have an ego. It's like getting behind a microphone. You have to have an ego to do it. There's no question that everybody is going to anybody that runs for those type of office displays some narcissistic tendencies. But this is off the charts and it's criminal. In 10 different instances, 10 episodes, Mueller investigated for obstruction of justice, asking James Comey to let Michael Flynn go. Trump's reaction to the Russia investigation. Remember, we have the Lester Holt interview, the firing of James Comey. Hey, it's the Russia thing. Mueller's appointment and efforts to oust him. Remember, the special counsel's office was investigating whether the president had obstructed justice all the way back in June of 2017. He had tried to curtail the Russia investigation. He attempted to stop the public from seeing the evidence. President Trump tried to get Jeff Sessions to take back control of it. Trump told Don McGahn to deny that the president had wanted the special counsel removed. These are all obstruction of justice. Trump's team asking Flynn for a heads up on information and commending Paul Manafort for not flipping the president's changing behavior toward Michael Cohen. 10 separate incidents. It is unbelievable how bad this is. If you want to take a peek at the report again, I'll put the links up. And actually, an Axios has a very interesting visual method where you can type in somebody's name like Donald Trump Jr. and see his connections, which, by the way, Mueller basically said, yeah, this guy tried to commit crimes but was too stupid to have the requisite intent. You have to actually know that you're breaking the law. He didn't know enough to know that he was breaking the law. Now, most laws, you don't have to know that you're breaking the law. Certain laws require knowledge of the law and the fact that you were breaking it. In the case of Donald Trump Jr., you didn't know enough. This is bad. This is bad on every single level. By the way, which leads to today's news that President Trump unbelievably is suing to stop Congress from getting his tax returns. Remember the ones that he promised us? He's suing to block Congress from getting his tax returns because he has something to hide. Again, he is hiding something. He is hiding his connections. Why the $2 billion in loans from Deutsche Bank when nobody else would loan him money? What are the connections? We need the tax returns. It is wow. Wow. It's weird to watch Republicans try and defend this president now. It's weird to watch it. I mean, I am glad that there is not a direct tieable offense to Vladimir Putin, but clearly Putin wanted Trump to win, and it's open, and it's in the clear, and explains Helsinki and so many other things, and how anybody can stand by and just go, yeah, well, he's cleared, exonerated, not at all, nothing of the sort. So while Attorney General Bill Barr and Trump sycophants continue to try and blow smoke all over the United States, it's Earth Day today. It's Earth Day today. Yes. So let's care about our planet. Why? Because we live here. When our planet dies, we die. And better yet, the planet won't die. We'll just be dead the way we continue. You keep hearing me talk about things like plastic and pesticides and all of that kind of stuff. There was news that just came out last week that should, I'm hoping, open some people's eyes to the idea that we need to cut way back to plastic only where it is necessary. There are absolutely medical reasons for plastic. I'm not anti-plastic entirety. I am anti our single-use, wasteful use, packaging that is unnecessary, use of plastic that poisons our planet. You've heard me talk about this for a very long time. Well, news just came out last week. Scientists in the Pyrenees Mountains in southern France, where there was nothing within 60 miles, nothing around, scientists recorded a daily rate of 365 microplastic particles per square meter falling from the sky. So it's not just our oceans. You know that they've done research now. The sea salt that you buy today, plastic is all over it. Nanoscale beads of plastic have attached to sea salt. So when you're eating plastic at the smallest levels, we have poisoned our entire planet with plastic now. And it's raining from the sky. Here's a quote from D&E Allen, a researcher at Ecolab in the School of Agricultural and Life Sciences in Toulouse, France, lead author of the study published last week in Nature Geoscience. It was incredible how much microplastic was being deposited. Microplastic is a new atmospheric pollutant. Now remember, microplastic, small, super, this is when plastic breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces. It doesn't degrade. It just breaks into smaller pieces. And here's another quote from him here. If you go outside with a UV light set at a wavelength of 400 nanometers and shine it sideways, you'll see all kinds of plastic particles in the air fluoresce. It's almost worse indoors. It's all a bit terrifying. It's unbelievable. So they collected microplastics over a period of 5 months at a meteorological station at 4,500 feet above sea level, using atmospheric deposition catchers that look like tall funnels. And they found just tiny, more than 50% of the microplastics found at the station were fragments less than 25 microns in size. Now, why is that so bad? Because remember, plastic polymers themselves are not necessarily toxic. They leach and leak toxicity. And the chemicals can be divided into three categories: the plastic ingredients of the plastic material, byproducts of manufacturing, and the chemicals absorbed from the environment. So toxicological responses caused by plastic are combinations thereof. It's everything from heavy metals, pesticides, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs. They all bond with these nanoparticles. So what the nanoparticles of plastic themselves aren't necessarily toxic. It's that toxic things bond to those nanoparticles and build up in the environment. And then everything through the entire food chain is getting polluted by these things. It's horrific. All plastic, from macro to nanoscale, are concerned and noted to leach and adsorb hazardous substances. We are literally poisoning ourselves. We can talk about the changing climate, which is, of course, of note. And there was an article this weekend in the Dallas News documenting how the changing climate and the inability to farm and have food security in Central America is leading to people fleeing here because of food insecurity and violence. So these things all matter. Climate change matters, and moving and switching to things like geothermal power matters to solving these big picture problems. But most importantly, what we can do today is to remember the recycling, the kind of the eco mantra: reduce, reuse, recycle. Remember, the last thing there is recycle. Reduce what we use first. If you don't need a plastic bag, don't use it. Use a paper bag. Use a canvas bag to carry stuff around. Don't use a plastic disposable fork or the single-use straws. Sip out of the cup. Or do what I do. I actually carry a pair of chopsticks and travel with it in my briefcase. I'm actually 100% serious. I travel with chopsticks, so I don't have to use plastic fork, plastic spoon, etc. So I have reusable utensils. I carry a coffee mug. So that's reducing my use of plastics. That doesn't mean I never use plastics, because I do, because I'm a human being living in our society today. I'm not perfect about it, but every step that we take to be better about it on Earth Day and every day of the year is important. So reduce the plastics, reuse the plastics. When possible, reuse, and then recycle. And keep in mind, plastic is basically not recyclable. It's very, very difficult to recycle. You can make black garbage bins and myriad things like that, and that's about it. Plastic is not very well recyclable. It's tough to use. So on this Earth Day, please just try to be a little bit more conscious, a little less heavy-footed. Next time you have the chance, take the bus, take the train if you can. Try walking that half mile. I run to the grocery store. No joke. I've actually made it part of my exercise routine now. I live near enough a large grocery store chain that where I get like my organic almond milk and some of those types of products. I jog instead of drive. And that becomes now my morning jog. A couple times a week, I run to the grocery store and I carry my canvas bags and I run it home, or I walk it home actually, because I'm usually carrying pasture raised eggs and that kind of stuff too. So I don't run home with my almond. But there are just these little things. If we all start being a little bit more conscious of it and think just a half a second, do I need that bag? Can I get a glass container instead of a plastic container? We've switched in my household to that. So we're not using the rubber or the plastic Tupperware. We have glass. It's not Tupperware, whatever the brand is. I don't even know. But we use glass containers instead because they go in the dishwasher. They don't leach toxins. They don't break down. And the drilling of oil was not part of the process. So there are things that we can do today on Earth Day. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I hope you share. Please send me your comments as well. You can email me, leftcoastnews@ethanbehrman.com. And of course, I'll have the links to everything up at leftcoastnews.ethanbehrman.com.